Well, first of all, I would like to thank you for giving me this task of thinking of resilience in a more depth way. And I took this and I tried to figure out the different elements of projectification or of resilience for us as project managers. And yeah, so let's have a look what I found out. So, can you see my
Recording
screen?
in progress.
Okay, can
Yes,
you
ma'am.
see my screen? Yes?
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So that's the topic of today. I'm going to talk about the different layers of resilience. Well, of course, when you think of resilience, we first think of the individual. But I also want to talk about do teams need resilience? And to go on, not only teams, but also organizations, do they need to be resilient? And if we go one step further, does a society need resilience? And you might ask yourself already these questions now. How narrow or how broad do we have to understand this concept of resilience? Okay, so that's what we are going to deal with in the next hour or so. And yeah, thank you very much, Mark. You introduced me. I was not aware that you would do this because I prepared this as my CV, as a little story about the different elements in my life. And you actually already mentioned a lot of these. So yes, here we can see what I'm really burning for, and that is international project management that you can see nicely here on this world map. Yes, that is here my home university in the UK, Cranfield University, where I did my PhD. But you also see HTW in Berlin, and that's the reason why I put here Brandenburg Gate, because this is now my hometown where I'm living. And you see one of my major projects that I did in my lifetime, and that is actually the BMW Z4 Roadster, which some of you might know. Don't know if this is a classic car here for your area, because the funny thing about roadsters is that people tend to drive this car in areas which are not the classic sunny parts of the world, just because we are so hungry for a little bit of sun that we don't want to sit always in a dark covered car. And the hotter the areas get, the less the people use these roadsters, because you want to hide from the sun, of course. So therefore, what was special about this car project, just to let you know a little bit, is that this was only the second car project that BMW launched in their new plant in the United States at that time in South Carolina. So the project was not only to bring a car to the from Germany to the United States, but also to build up there an international supplier network to make, for example, just-in-time supply for the key parts possible also on this part of the world. And we will come to this later on in my talk. Yes, so another here you see the universities where I'm also having my annual lectures, Tongji University in Shanghai and Reykjavik University, and you can imagine these are two very, very different parts of the world. Shanghai is the probably most densely, or one of the most densely populated areas in the world, and on the other hand, Reykjavik in Iceland, one of the most less populated areas in the world. The whole country of Iceland, and Iceland, by the way, is larger than the UK, or just England, sorry, England, but larger than England and has only 350,000 inhabitants. So very, very contrast when you look at these two cities, and also, of course, the education style in this part of the world. And what I'm really, really famous for, I think, all over the world in the project management research community, is because I am the one who did this projectification research. I started with Germany. That's the reason why I put here Germany. And what we did is that we actually tried to measure the extent of projectification in the German economy. And actually it is possible. And what we found out is that from all the gross domestic product produced in Germany, a third, or even more than a third, actually 42%, is done through projects. And that study was in 2015, so we are now planning for next year to repeat this study. And my forecast is that we are today by more than 50%. So that means that every second, think what a person is doing, where somebody is creating a value, is actually done through projects in this part of the world. And of course, it would be interesting to know how it is in the Philippines. So maybe we can also, I don't know if we have people here from the research area, from universities, who are listening to us. So I'm always looking for new research partners everywhere in the world in order to find research professors who would be interested in doing this research too in their national economies, and then to compare with the same methodology the results. Two more things I would like to mention. I like to talk about trends. Actually what we did in 2015, we did a study about the future trends in project management by 2025. And actually now it's the end of 21. And of course, nobody could foresee that things like COVID-19 would be there. But actually what we can already see is that what we forecasted actually really is taking place even faster than we thought, not only in 10 years, but only in 5-6 years, the trends really developed. And then finally, something I'm also really, that is something from my heart that I perceive to be really important, and that is the topic of bringing more diversity into project management. At least in Europe and in the United States, project management was, I have to say, was a very male discipline. And we found out by a lot of research projects that actually it is particularly women with their different personality and social skills, particularly with their strong soft skills, that are really very good in project management. And so I'm working continuously, and we also create a special interest group with an IPMA for more diversity. And I now just talked about gender diversity, but it's about all aspects of diversity. It doesn't matter if you talk about cultural diversity, national diversity, whatever you want to. Of course, when it comes to the profession, if you just have a team of people with the same education and age, that's not a diverse group. So I want really, and we know this from a lot of research, that particularly if you want to be innovative, if you want new ideas, new solutions to existing problems, you should have a maximum diversity. So therefore, I'm really a prophet of diversity, and so I'm also happy there in that way also to be today with you in the Philippines. Actually, I've never been to the Philippines, so I have been in many parts of the world, but not in the Philippines. But today I'm at least with you here virtually. Okay, so and of course I have to talk about IPMA, because since January 21, I am the vice president of membership and young crew. And here again, maybe you see now why also young crew, young people are really important to me. How I help and support them to become even more successful in the area of project management. Okay, so now let's start with my talk. And I would like to start with a quote from Nelson Mandela, whom I really admire. And one of his famous quotes that he said is that, "Do not judge me by my success, judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again." And I think this is a really, really good introduction to our today's topic of resilience. And I think all of us, we know this feeling that we are falling down, and that's the difference. Yeah, don't lie on the floor. Get up again and put yourself and put the dust off your clothes, and then let's start again. Imagine a young baby, yeah, with the age of 1, who has to learn, and we all were in that age, but we had to learn to talk and to walk and to get up. And imagine a young baby would, with 1 year, normally they start then to stand up and do the first steps. And how many times a baby falls down, and if they would stay on the floor and wouldn't get up again. And that is this mechanism. A young baby doesn't think of this. Yeah, oh, I have fallen down, I was not successful, oh, I don't want to go on. No, they try again, and they even smile and climb the tree again. And that is, I think, a wonderful model for resilience that we as adults have lost a little bit. And that is one of the wake-up calls here for us in this session about resilience, to remind us of this attitude that we all have in ourselves, because we wouldn't be where we are today if we wouldn't have always started again. Whatever we learned in our lives, nobody was born speaking fluently English and walking and climbing and running and learning new mathematical formulas and so on. So what's the structure of my today's talk? I'm going to give a definition of resilience. We're then talking about the different aspects of resilience. First for the individuum, then for teams, then for organizations, and then finally for the society. And I'm going to conclude then. So, a definition of resilience. Well, I already showed you the concept by the quote of Nelson Mandela, but where does this concept actually come from? It comes from psychology. And therefore, I start with the definition of psychologists, and they define resilience of the process of adapting well in the face of adversity or after a trauma or a strategic accident or loss of somebody in the family, for example, or something really dramatic happening, a threat, or another very significant source of stress. Family, relationship, health problem. Yeah, you from one day to the other one learn that you have cancer, for example. Or at the workplace, you lose your job, or you have severe financial problems. So all this is an enormous stress factor. And resilience in psychology is this competence of bouncing back from difficult experiences, and that can involve in profound personal growth. So that is, but we're not psychologists. We are here project managers, I think at least the majority of us. And the question is, what can we take from this concept here for us as project managers? And I'm now considering project management as a field of business management. And in business management, we are a little bit shorter. And our definition of resilience is the ability to bounce back from setbacks. Yeah, so that is in a couple of words said what we mean. Yeah, the ability to bounce back from setbacks, whatever the setbacks are. Okay, so now let's have a look why resilience is such an important competence that you even dedicate a conference to this competence. And yeah, I would like to ask you, and I see that the chat is already here full, so I would like to know from you here in the chat, or you can also open your microphones if you want. Why do you think has resilience become such an important competence? So I'm waiting now for you to answer the question, why is resilience in today's time such an important competence? Aha, we have here, it will lead to success. Yes, that's good. Okay, yes. And now we have the world is changing and this competence will enable us to thrive. Yes, it leads to further improvement. It's a key principle to achieving goals because nobody's perfect. Yes, I like this one. It gives people the strength needed to process and overcome hardship. Oh my God, now it's getting fast here. Resilience is to learn and do better from experience, essential to grow. There are always obstacles, overcome challenges in projects. Wow, yes, wonderful. Okay, and another one, problems are normal and resilience help us to accomplish the project goals. Yes, that's also true. We need to move on despite setbacks. It gives us strengths needed to overcome hardship. Yeah, ability to recover, also wonderful. Emotional strengths to cope with adversity and hardship. Yeah, okay, perfect, perfect. Oh, I think you're all already well off, and that's exactly what we're striving with and struggling with every day. Yes, and you are right. Yes, that is becoming ever more important. So, so let's go here to why resilience is important or getting even more important because yes, as somebody wrote, it is the difference between successful and unsuccessful people. So if you will meet a successful person, I'm sure that is a resilient person, because if the person would not be resilient, they would still lie on the ground after a setback. But it is also, we know that it has a positive influence regarding satisfaction and engagement at work, but not only at work, it is about well-being. And resilient people also are less depressive, particularly in COVID-19 times, where many people were sitting at home and were having a depression. The resilient people did not so much. Yeah. Also, there is evidence that resilience can help to protect from physical illness. So, of course, there is a relationship between mental health and physical health, and heart, cancer problems, whatever you want to name. Many organs have to do with psychological problems. And therefore, resilient people also are less sick and suffer less from illnesses. And finally, and somebody was also mentioning this in the chat, in today's VUCA world, and I think quickly, a quick word, I think everybody has heard VUCA. VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And that is the abbreviation to the difference of the 21st century and the 20th century. So, and I think particularly the last 2 years with COVID have shown us how volatile, how uncertain, how complex and ambiguous our world has become. Nobody has the right answer how to go with all these big threats. And particularly in this uncertain, rapidly changing times, resilience has become a vital competence element for all leaders. I'm not talking now about only managers, yeah, but political leaders. I mean, they stood in the foreground in the last 2 years, because every political leader had to take hard decisions how to cope with COVID-19. But look, think of medical doctors, yeah, in hospitals, how to cope with this flood of people in the hospitals. But of course, also with top managers, and of course also with us as project managers. So it's really an element that we really have to consider more and more. And so far it's not part of the ICB4, the individual competence baseline of IPMA, but I'm pretty sure that in the new ICB5, resilience should be a new competence element, because that's what we've learned now in the last years. So the big question now is, because now we have looked at the individual, and I think we all agree that resilience can also be applied to other objects than human beings, or subjects, maybe we should say. What do you think? Is resilience something that is just human oriented to us as human beings? Or what would be your, when you think of this ability to cope with setbacks, is this something that we can apply also in other areas? So again, I would like you to use the chat function. Yes, it is it's a closed question. Therefore, oh, I like here the bamboo example. Yes, or structures like buildings. Yes, if you look at the earthquake, yeah, or a tornado, yeah, particularly building construction of buildings is a great example for resilience. Yes, so yeah, we got a lot of yes, and even cities. Yes, we come to this later on. And I like this example of the bamboo. The bamboo actually is the model for a resilient object or subject, however you would like to name it. And the engineers here within us, yeah, they are now also, yeah, looking at materials, yeah, resilient materials regarding, for example, temperatures, high and very low temperatures, yeah, or plastic. A polymer is getting in its form again, even if it got very hot. A rubber ball, yes, I got here as an example. Yes, so the concept actually, as you now nicely pointed out, is also applicable to more than us as human beings, but also to objects. Yeah. But now let's have a look again. We come back now to us as human beings. And the question is, what creates the drain of resilience at work? And this year is a study in the UK about 835 British employees. And the question was, what is your biggest drain on resilience at work? And about 40% said, when I'm challenged on work matters, that is really a big drain on resilience, or I'm struggling day to day working and managing my family and my working life to get this together. And also when there have been upheavals in my personal life, that is a drain on resilience. Or when the nature of my work takes me outside of my comfort zone, or I'm feeling personally criticized. Wow, yeah, that is painful. And 60% say this is hard for me. And then I need my resilience capabilities. Or when the volume or pace of work stretches me to my limits. But the major drain on resilience is when the people have to manage difficult relationships and particularly politics in the workplace. And you can also ask yourself now, what is challenging your resilience at the workplace? This is from the UK, so it might be, and that would be also interesting now, what are in the Philippines, what are for you? And we have now 523 people. So if you want, you could use again the chat and share with us what are your biggest drains on resilience at the workplace, yeah, that we get a feeling if this is the same as in the UK, or if this is in very different here in the Philippines. In the meantime, I would like to share with you here what the answers then were when the people were, again, the same people, British people. Where do you get your resilience from? And only 15% said from my organization or from the work that I do, or, well, much more, about 45 or 50 said from my relationships, but the vast majority, about 90%, said from myself. So that's interesting. Yeah. So from myself, view the individual actually is the source of resilience. And again, thinking back of Nelson Mandela being in prison and on Robben Island, he could only rely on himself actually. Yeah. And therefore I took this model, him as a role model, and let us discover more the sources that we have in ourselves in order to gain more resilience. So myself, the individual, and again, it would be interesting to that you reflect, and if you want, you can share it with us in the chat about is this also true for yourself? And we come to yourself in a moment and we'll reflect on this in greater depth. So that was the definition on resilience. I think now we have a pretty good understanding of resilience. So now let's have the individual. So resilience is the capacity to withstand and recover from challenges, pressure, stressors. And what is interesting is now when we look at the individual resilience and the individual and the team. And actually it's not the same. Yeah, that's important. Yeah, when it works on both levels, but it's not the same. Yeah. So first, let's have a look at the individual and what are the individual sources for individual resilience. And there are three elements. First is psychological resilience. Yeah. For example, a positive attitude. And we know that this is really, really important, but also the ability to forgive somebody else, or also this internal sense of control, but also in certain emotional toughness, realism, but also the courage to face one's own fears. That are elements of this psychological characteristics of individual resilience. And we have a hand going up. Who was this? I can't see it. Who was the person who lifted the hand, who raised the hand? Would you like to say something? Who was it? Okay, not anymore. Okay, maybe it was not, or it has already gone. So it is this characteristic and this ability to, construct things in a positive way, or also to let it go. Yeah, not to take the things always so negative. So it's this mindset of individuals that is important for a resilient personality. But not only this, it's also the durability and physical fitness. And that is already now, somebody was talking about construction of buildings or of materials. And that also brings us now also to the individual. So resilience is also physical fitness and durability. And you can work on this actually, because this is now the physical reserve that you can further develop, and that it's not shrinking that easily when you're tired. And of course, if you're less physical fit, you tire more easily, and you're just more sensitive to stress. And your blood serum, cholesterol levels are higher for the less fit following an intense stressful event. So that is what we know from biochemistry, that you can work by your physical durability, whatever you want to do, walking, running, cycling, rowing, whatever. But physical fitness of your body also increases your mental resilience. That's important, and that's one key takeaway here from today. And the third is social support. So not only your capabilities and your fitness, but also social relationships. And that is also important, yeah? People who have an ample, active sources of emotional and also material support, by the way, from others are more resilient. So what we have seen, psychological, physical, and social factors are closely related. And now comes the good news, because in comparison to your personality, that you can hardly change, because that is really a very, very complex thing. But resilience is malleable, and therefore it is possible for us as human beings to work on and to become more resilient. As a vast number of programs show on personal resilience. Yeah? So we have studies, and we can demonstrate that if you work on these three factors, psychological, physical, social resilience, you can work on it and increase. So that is not something you were born with or what you got from your parents. No, you can really work on it. You can maximize your resilience with working on your psychological attitude, your physical strengths, and your social relationships. So now I would like to do a little exercise with you to build up your, because I think we all can increase our resilience. It's never perfect. So first, there is a new study actually in the Harvard Business Review here from January 21. And of course, Harvard Business Review is currently since 2 years full of resilience articles because of COVID-19. And because this is really a very fashionable element in management sciences. So they have these 8 elements or resilience areas, and we can first have a look at these, and I'm going to talk about them in a little bit more depth in a moment. And I would like you to identify, and that's what you can do for you personally. What are your top 3 resilience areas of need? Purpose, perspective, vision, coping with pushbacks, politics, work searches, but also empathy, and probably nobody has thought about humor. Humor is also a great area of coping better with resilience. Okay, so what they developed here, this team of the 3 researchers, Cross, Dillon, and Greenberg, they have here this like a compass, yeah, of relational sources of resilience. So let's have a look here, for example, at starting here at 12 o'clock with the work search. So everybody has everyday work searches, but the topic is, do you have connections that help you to shift or to manage these searches? Yeah, okay, ask yourself, is this good? Do you have this or not? Then this could be an area to work on. Let's have a look at politics. Do you have connections that help you to make sense of people or politics in a situation? I mean, politics, these power games, for example, at work. And if you do not have somebody who helps you in order to make sense what is happening and to understand what is the hidden agenda here, that can also be a big stress factor. So politics, yeah, is this an area where you could maybe improve? Question mark. Or let's have a look at pushbacks. These are the connections that help you to find the confidence to push back and to self-advocate. So how good are you in that way? Yeah? Or are you lying down quite long like a boxer when you got a push? Are you at once having somebody who gives you a helping hand and to get up again? But also the vision, yeah, in the way of connections that help you to see a path forward. Yeah, where do I want to end? What is my vision? Where do I want to be in the next 10 years? Yeah, either you alone or together with your partner or your team, however you would like to look at it. But this vision, yeah, that is very, very important to have this in order to, again, get up again and when you have fallen down, because you know where you want to go. And also perspective, because perspective is the connections that help you to maintain perspective when a setback has happened. Yeah. So what is it? Not only the vision, but also then, well, where do I want to go in the next step? Also the purpose. Yeah. Why am I doing all this? What is the higher meaning here? What is the meaning of our work? Yeah? Why are we doing this? Because we want to change the society, we want to make our country a better place, we want the people to give them work and that they can make their living. So that is purpose, yeah? And that is also important. If you have the feeling that your purpose is missing, that could also be one of the reasons why you're maybe not that resilient. And yeah, humor. So also to laugh is a wonderful, and particularly to laugh about yourself. Oh my God, yeah, what have I done here? And that helps us to cope better with situations. And finally, empathy. Yeah. So empathy, it is, yeah, looking at somebody else who maybe is causing you a negative emotion, and to understand why this person is as it is, as she or he is also a wonderful source of yeah, becoming more resilient. So now that you have a good understanding about these 8 elements, I want you to think where are your top 3 areas where you could improve. And I leave you for a couple of seconds here and to think of what is your area of improvement. Okay, so and now, yeah, so that was the task. Oh, sorry, I didn't put you the animation. So yeah, what are the areas that you want to strengthen in your life? That was the question here. What are the 3 areas where you think, there is still room for improvement? I mean, I think we all have room for improvement, but what are your top 3 areas to improve, to become more resilient? Yeah. And so now the second step is, I mean, that is very individual now, what you have found out. But now you can, as a good project manager, make a plan what you can do in your life to become stronger in this area. So that is very individual, and everybody of you will have found different areas that you want to work on. But what I found particularly interesting here in this article, The Secret of Building Resilience, is that this team of researchers found out that our networks are not strong enough, and that the real resilient people, particularly now in this COVID-19 pandemic, that they have wonderful, diverse networks. And so that is, I think, a source that we discovered now in the last 2 years, that networks are something that we have so far not really appreciated enough when it comes to resilience. So have a look at where are the people that you could invest to further cultivate your resources of resilience. Yeah. So who is somebody who is doing good for you? Yeah. Probably you know a couple of these people. And you should also think of broadening your relationships. For example, yeah, your work teammates. Yeah, maybe you haven't found out where are your non-work interests, and you should strengthen the relationship also with these, because your colleagues actually can help you a lot in a case of a pushback. So this is something, a source, a rich source that we could further exploit. But also you should think of maybe initiating engagement with new people to cultivate your resilience. So for example, spiritual groups, or another completely different affinity groups, but that just allows you to laugh more. I mean, we, at least here in Europe, are not really laughing a lot at the workplace. So, but we just learned that humor is really important for building up resilience. So maybe you want to have, maybe only once in 2 or 3 weeks, but you get together with a group of people who just makes you laugh and feel good, and that is enforcing your resilience. And also it's about that you think of more your different dimensions in your life, the variety of relationship. And we also know from research that particularly those people who are rich in different knowing different people, diverse people, connections, having a large network of people, young people, old people, richer people, people who have less than you, less money, and who are happy, that this helps you in order to become more independent and resilient. If something has happened, that you have a different perspective when you're struggling, and giving you a stronger sense of purpose. So that is one message here, thinking of your individual networks and as a strong source for building up your social resilience. Okay, so to conclude here, and we still have talked only about the individual, there are a lot of aspects that we can work on in order to build up our resilience. So it starts with self-regulation, self-care, having a good inner compass. What do I need? I need more me time. I need more time to do physical workout. This is all aspects of this self-care, self-regulation to develop your resilience, but also self-responsibility. Nobody is responsible for you, only yourself. So take good care of yourself. What does your body, what does your mind tell you? And do this. but also develop creative power, creativity in the way of finding new ways of solving a challenging situation. And creativity is again something, it's like a muscle that you can train. We don't have the time today, but I'm also teaching innovation management, and their creativity actually is a really, really important aspect. Yeah. Humor, yes, we talked about humor, so laugh more. Yeah, also about yourself, that's important. Yeah, don't take yourself too serious, because then you are more easy with yourself. But also the capability for improvisation. I think that again, we in Germany, we always want to be so perfect. And I don't know what about you in the Philippines, but this, that we are a little bit more easy in the way of, okay, how can we make a quick and easy solution that is already helping in 80% of the cases? That's great. And again, that is something you can learn. Yeah, if I think of Toyota production management system, yeah, these are the simple, cheap solutions that can already help. And again, that's a mindset that you can train. But also the willingness to learn. Yeah, we get old when we stop learning. So continuously learning and improving. And we talked intensely about the relationships. I think that is really what we have learned now with this last slide, but also developing a vision, what we want to achieve for the future and how we can shape our future, but also an optimistic mindset, and self-assessment. Where do I stand? Where do I want to be? What can I improve? But also this solution orientation, not only thinking of the problem, but thinking of solutions, and creativity, and accepting. Yeah, we cannot all change the world. Yeah, to be also realistic in that way, what we can do and the things we can maybe, yeah, only improve a little, but if we want to improve, starting with ourselves. And finally, accepting and corresponding to this VUCA world. Yeah, I think this is a good compass with a lot of measures what we can do in order to improve ourselves and to become more resilient. So that was the individuum, and yeah, so we have now a good foundation, as here this stone pyramid shows here, because individual resilience, of course, is the basis. If this is stable, then we can also look now at the other areas: teams, organization, and finally society. So let's have a look at team resilience. And I like this quote that I read when I prepared this speech today, and that is: resilience actually is a team sport. Wow, okay, so that is a very interesting study here. I also advise here, if you want to read further, this paper here on team resilience, how teams flourish under pressure, from 2015. And that is a team of researchers who did a lot of research on teams of space shuttle teams from NASA. And of course, you can imagine such a team in such a NASA Challenger capsule. Wow, they really, really have to rely on themselves, and they absolutely, it's key critical that they are dealing with pressure, with stress, with difficult circumstances, and if one in this team is freaking out, that would be the end for the whole team, for each of them, and for the whole mission. And therefore, this is a beautiful source for learning resilience as a team. And actually, that's interesting because a team can actually really help each other, because a team minimizes, manages, and mends together these difficult situations. And they here in this article, and I'm not going too deep now because I could again spend 1 hour only on this team resilience, but they compare here brittle teams in different situations, which they call markers, like challenging a resolution or health or resources or recovery or ongoing viability. So what does a brittle team do in this situation, and what does a resilient team do? So just having a quick look, what's the difference here? Brittle teams ignore or delay responses to a challenge, or the address is incomplete, or they fail to follow up to ensure a resolution. In comparison to a resilient team that addresses quickly and effectively the constraint of the situation. So quick, effective, corresponding to the challenge. Regarding health, and health, as we learned, is very important. And here in the brittle teams, it's a compromise. Yeah, they, for example, lack in communication, in comparison to resilient teams who handle challenges in a way that they look at the team's health, look at the positive team spirit, and look at, do we communicate well enough? How is our mood? What do we need to do that we keep this team spirit up and team health up? Also, when it comes to resources, they maintain or even bank tangible social, emotional resources. And that is important also, looking at our resources, and not only the tangible, physical, but also emotional resources. So where do we have this, where we can always use, and like a bank, and have it, and where can we get it in case of a critical situation. Resilient teams are also able to quickly bounce back. Yes, that's the definition of resilience, but also as a team. They bounce back and come fast back to the previous level of their effectiveness and health after this challenging event. And in the best case, they are even stronger than before, because they learned and they reflected, what have we done well, what can we do better? And also when it comes to the viability, they handle challenges, they innate health, they preserve their resources, and then they are ready to meet new challenges, yeah, because they have this, they digested, they reflected what they have done good. And so this is something that we can really learn from as a team. You don't need to be resilient alone. You can do it as a team. And again, as a team, the attitude should be, yeah, to minimize the situation, the stressors, the pressures that create stress. You should manage them, and then afterwards you should manage. And again, I'm not now going too much in the details, but they have developed here, for those of you who are interested in it, they have developed 40 team resilience behaviors here. So when it starts to minimizing, what can a team do before a stress factor has occurred? So for example, anticipating the challenges, thinking of what could happen, and to plan a contingency. that is what you can do already. And we know this, for example, from medical doctors, from fire workers, from military, that they plan to the worst case, because if you have planned this, if you have done a maneuver, if you have planned an emergency situation, in a game, of course, but if you have done this, not only mentally but physically, you are much better than in the situation, prepared to what we need to do if this crisis is happening. But it's also about understanding the current readiness. How ready are we? So you can monitor your readiness in case something would happen. How ready are we? How good is our communication? How aware are we regarding our readiness, but also regarding our vulnerability? So that is all what we can do before. But also when it comes to identifying early warning signs, like an earthquake, you have these little alarm systems, have we installed that we know something could happen, so building up such an alarm system, and also to prepare that you handle these stressors, that is something that you can do beforehand. And then we come to the moment when the stress is happening and when something unexpected is happening. And that is now the phase of the managing during the event. So what can a team do here? So the first thing is to assess the challenges quickly and accurately. What is happening? Where is it coming from? Is this an emergency? Do we have to switch now into this mode? And now to address what are the chronic stressors in this emergency situations. But also then to maintain the processes under stress and to seek guidance. So that is what a team can do together, also to look for help, to search for help from outside as a team if you realize we can't cope with that alone anymore. And finally, to look at, and that is then the mending after the stress event occurred, so afterwards, and what they suggest is to regain situation awareness. Okay, so that was what happened. How can we recover? And now to conduct a team debriefing. What happened? What was good? What was not good? What are our lessons learned? And then to address the concerns or risk points. So what was not going too well? What can we improve? What can we adjust for the future? Also, what has gone wrong? Re-establishing relationships, for example, that might have suffered from this challenge. But also what is very important, to express appreciation and to thank the people outside the team for their support. Okay, so these are 40 very practical behaviors that we can take here from this high performance NASA teams, but that also can be applied now to us, for example, in project teams, to cope better with stress and to become more resilient as a team. Okay, so that was tips for the resilience of teams. If you now look at resilience for organizations, the question is, does this resilience concept make also sense for organizations? So, and again, I would like you to use the chat and to think of Have you ever thought that an organization should also be resilient? Is your organization, are you discussing this concept for your organization to become more resilient? So, question, does this concept of resilience make sense also for organizations? Okay. Yes, we got a first yes. Okay. Very well. Yeah, absolutely. Indeed. Yes, definitely. Okay. Yes, and I agree with you. Of course, it makes sense to apply this also for organizations. And actually, we have a definition of business resilience. And that is the ability of an organization to quickly adapt to disruptions while maintaining continuous business operations and safeguarding people, assets, and the overall brand equity. And I think in the last 2 years, with COVID-19 and the lockdown, that was something all organizations had to quickly learn to become more resilient, to quickly adapt to this new situation of people working from home, of a lockdown, of still being able to deliver what the organization is delivering. So yes, a very up-to-date concept. And actually, what are the aspects of organizational resilience? It is the response to external threats. It's the organizational reliability, but it's also employee strength. So it has very much to do with the individual. But it's also the adaptability of the business model. So very much also looking at how do we cope with reduced level of demand, for example. And finally, I think that is something we have not sufficiently looked at, to look at the design principles that reduce supply chain vulnerabilities and disruptions. And that is talking now about Germany, and 70% of the people are vaccinated, so the organizations are back. But now we realize that the shelves are empty and that the prices are going down because the stores are empty, and the global supply chain networks are still not working, and that the inflation rate is going up. For example, looking at the car industry, the German car industry are now in a lockdown because they do not get the parts and components and the chips that they need in order to build the cars. So that is now 18 months later, they realize that their supply chains actually are not as resilient as they thought they are. So I think a really, really good example of organizational resilience, and that this is not the case in such an extent as they thought it would be. Yeah, so another example, hospitals or restaurants, how they managed with the COVID-19 crisis. So a good example is, some restaurants closed their doors and others, they continued to serve food through delivery service. And that is an example of resilience in difficult periods of time. Or also hospitals, some hospitals cannot cope with when the doctors are on strike, and the others are able to, flexibly find new ways of coping also with a larger amount of patients by new ways of coping with the patients. So actually what you see here, that is also from the 1982. So it's a pretty long concept of resilience of organizations, and that we have research in that way. And you see that it is always that researchers are talking and writing, but if really such a crisis like COVID-19 is happening, then the majority of organizations is waking up and now taking this concept also seriously. Yeah, so why are some organizations more resilient than others? Because, yeah, these successful firms, they really prepare for the worst case, prepare for the crisis. And resilient firms, yeah, have this capacity to investigate, to learn, to act without knowing in advance what will happen. And it's this preparation, this flexibility and appreciation also of the work of the employees, also letting people make mistakes, don't punishing them if they make a mistake, valuing this stuff. And that is also what resilient organizations are really, really good in. So yeah, this is a nice overview of what resilient organizations do. They prioritize reliability, they recognize the complexity, they have strong leaders, they acknowledge risk, and they have a decentralized decision making. That's important. Yeah? So this is what we can take away when we look at resilient organizations. So and what these companies actually face, they face the reality with staunchness. They make meaning of hardship instead of crying out in despair, and they improvise solutions from thin air. And others do not. And again, you see that this is research from 2002. So it's a pretty old concept, but it's now more up to date than ever. And I think now we start to go back what these researchers have already found out. Okay, so to take away these organizations that are resilient, they anticipate change, they do not restrict resources, they are prepared for adversity, they are proactive and flexible, and they provide training for the employees' psychological capital. So they create, invent, and discover unknown markets. Yeah, they are flexible, and they are also guiding against failure. So failure is not something a no-go, and they recover fast from disruption, and they are having effective teams and yeah, a cognitive functioning among their staff in order to mitigate disasters. And you can again ask yourself if your organization is resilient enough or if there is room for improvement. So that was organization, and the last minutes I would like to spend on society, because that's also, and that is the by far most newest area also in research. So yeah, so we see today a society actually as a political entity, and it's about really understanding that also a society needs to be resilient, and that is the way of being able to cope with sustainability and cope with the ecologic climate changes, but also supply chains, in order to keep the society resilient, yeah? That they are able to respond to these inter-organizational, national, or global issues in the way that they are, yeah, as flexible to bound but stay safe. And that is particularly in our today's Anthropocene time, where our nature is so much influenced by us, the human being. This is it's a new safety science that is developing now in order to engage with these large-scale issues of safety. And societal resilience addresses this risk and sustainability both at the regional and the global scale. So it's particularly looking at critical infrastructures and regarding natural catastrophes, earthquakes, tsunamis, etc., and how can we keep our infrastructure safe in these stress moments. But it's also about the resilience of the people, that they have knowledge and methods, that they produce this resilience through networks where these global risks are shaped. So it's also a knowledge society, and imagine internet is breaking down. So probably it's not only internet and Google knowledge, but also really competences of people who know what to do in such a stress situation. And it's about building up robust infrastructures to shape resilient societies through a sustainable livelihood, scientific and political practices. So I think they all need to work better together to develop a resilient society. So that was very short about resilience for the society. I think, again, this could be a very, very large topic, but what I wanted to show that this concept also applies even more today and in the future for us as a society. So to conclude my talk, resilience has become an increasingly important competence element, both on individual level, but also for teams on the organizational and society level. And what we have seen is that every individual can build up, but also teams, also organizations and society should build up and continuously improve her or his resilience level. And actually, resilience is the difference between success and unsuccess. Yes. And particularly in today's VUCA world, and that's the only thing we know for sure, the world is not getting less VUCA, it's even getting more VUCA. And in this world, resilience has become the decisive, vital capability, both for individuals, teams, organizations, and societies. And particularly this societal resilience, I didn't find a lot in research and papers on this. So it is really a very young field. And my player is particularly a great opportunity for us as project managers to work on this interface between sustainability, between social sciences, politics, and global supply chain management, for example. So a lot of room for the future to improve and to enhance this. And with these words, I would like to thank you very much for your active contributions in the last 80 minutes. And I'm looking forward to your feedback or your questions. Thank you.